First of all, happy St. Patrick's Day. We are celebrating here, and lots of Irish people in the Bard family. And I want to thank you for taking your time to talk to everyone. We are expecting about 150 people, and we've had a lot of questions. I would say we've probably had about 30 questions. You can imagine that a lot of them covering the same topics. So I'm going to get started asking the questions. We have about an hour. We could go a little longer, but we'll try and get to at least 6 questions if we can, but obviously they're very overlapping. I'm excited to ask you these, to talk about this and the big picture. Here we are in 2025, and the first question, which covers lots of people's questions, but comes from somebody in the class of 24, Gabriel Ochoa. What is Bard doing to navigate the political situation and economic uncertainty driven by the new administration, which is entirely opposed to the principles and values of American democracy that I learned at Bard? And lots of people had questions like that. So I think people want to know how Bard is handling what's going on, and how you are.
Yeah, the first order of business is that we have an obligation to protect the vulnerable people in our community, faculty, staff, and students. And those range from those who may be undocumented to those on visas, those who are refugees, and that we need to be extremely careful to protect them from the deportation, anti-immigration activities that the new administration is putting forward. That's the first step. The second is to retain the principles that we have, which are about access and equity and excellence without any discrimination, and to preserve our integrity against the potential onslaught that can come from the federal government.
And how are we doing that?
Well, doing that by getting everybody informed and prepared about their rights, about putting protocols in place regarding the right of federal officers to come on the campus, to expand, although it has no legal power, it has moral power, the sanctuary status that derives from our membership in the Episcopal Church, and therefore to sanctify more spaces in the chapel should a need for sanctuary exist, even though it has no firm legal basis. There are precedents that do privilege the church over a secular institution.
And so how does that work in practice? People can't come in if you're in the church?
The theory is that if there is a need to protect people from from an attempt to seize them and deport them, and so that if they take sanctuary in a church, there is some historical precedent to respect that.
Okay. So in terms of sort of tangible things that Bard has been doing, we we have our values, and Bard has their mission, and our mission statement. Are there actual things that have been being put in place to protect the faculty, to protect what they can teach, those types of things?
There's no need to further protect what they can teach. We're not going to countenance some kind of government censorship of what could be taught. But so the protection of the individuals, there's a pretty clear protocol with regard to the immigration question. The other question, of course, the funding question, which is institutions can, as Columbia has been targeted for the cutting off federal funds. We've had only one incident so far. We had a $500,000 grant to improve the science teaching on the West Bank with our Palestinian collaboration with Al-Quds, which was canceled. And we're still assessing what the impact of the closure of USAID will be. And we're putting a watchful eye on all the federal grants that we have for research and other programs that amount to $8 or $9 million a year. And nobody knows what the impact of the evisceration of the staff of the Department of Education will have on the distribution of Pell. Pell, which is a congressional mandate, can't be canceled by the executive branch, but they can create a bureaucratic chaos by inadequate personnel and simply slow it down. And so it's a de facto use of the monetary power that the feds have.
Will that affect incoming students as well as current students?
It will impact all students, incoming and if it happens. So no one really knows. One has to understand, which everybody does, I'm sure, that this is an extremely carefully worked out, rapid fire, day by day shift. And that's characteristic of many autocratic regimes, that they create fear by creating uncertainty. You don't know when the next target is. You don't know who the next target is. You cannot underestimate their skill. And so anybody who really thinks they know what's going to happen doesn't know what they're talking about, because it is a moving target, and intentionally so.
And quite a few alums, view you as a scholar of history, and that you know about these types of autocratic regimes and Hungary and CEU, and wanted a sort of lens of how to look at this through history, and sort of what we look at through the next four years, and how to put that in perspective. Do you have anything?
Yeah, so no one is really sure how the best way to resist is, and to bring an end to this. Look, President Trump was elected by the American people, and those who voted for him and those who stayed home. He has a legitimate mandate in that regard. And we have to find a way to convince the people, not his base, but those who did vote for him, who are not really in his base, that they made a bad decision, and that the universities, for example, are not their enemy, and that the caricature of the university put forward by the neoconservatives and by the Trump campaign and J.D. Vance is scandalously distorted, and that the universities are crucial to the American economy. They're crucial to the nation. They're one of the most competitive aspects of America, and that we've created an inhospitable environment for students from abroad, when we have been net importers of students and have students from abroad and have thrived on that enrollment. And the sector, that is to say, Bard has a high percentage of students from abroad, but that the picture painted of a kind of elite arrogance and discussion of wokeness and all that is wildly exaggerated, and obliterates what is hugely essential, particularly in science and technology, but also in the humanities, about the university. So we have to find a way to talk to people whose confidence has been eroded by the propaganda about the universities. And we can't simply virtue signal, as what people like to say, to ourselves, express outrage. That's not convince anybody. And we have to find a way to to persuade more of our fellow citizens about the value and significance um, of universities and their relationship to democracy and the rule of law. So that's the task ahead of us, and how that's done is not clear. Um, Individual institutions, I don't think, can do it themselves. It has to have a collective effort. Um, we're neither prominent enough nor strong enough to put such a movement together. And the private sector in particular is in a funny way the most vulnerable. The state universities have different issues. But one has to simply stay alert, and one has to have the financial strength to withstand the use of financial power by the federal government to undermine or even destroy uh, some institutions of higher education.
And do you feel Bard, you sort of said that Bard, you didn't think Bard was a particular target. We're not big enough. We're not on some list or something. Do you think we're going to get in somebody's crosshairs at some point? Do you have the
Well,
feeling about
who
that?
knows? Who
Yeah.
knows? There are many reasons uh, why Bard could be singled out. We have 10 public high schools in inner cities. We have a prison program. We have micro colleges. We are the largest Palestinian American academic collaboration. Um, we are clearly international in our reach. We have connections with China even. Um, and so there are those who think of us as a kind of a bastion of wokeness, who might even be, alumni, who take some umbrage at what they think is the political orthodoxy, and there is no political orthodoxy here, actually, and that. Uh, so it's hard to predict. We did not, I'm pleased to say, make the list of 60 institutions who are going to be investigated by Title VI um, for presumed failure to protect Jewish students. Um, so that was good, but it's an odd list, which I can't quite figure out why places are. Muhlenberg College is on the list, Union College is on the list. Sarah Lawrence is on the list, and who knows how that list was compiled. But everyone listening should know that this is unprecedented. What I said to the faculty at the last faculty meeting is that we have to operate not as if we're in a democracy anymore. That in some sense, the democracy has been paused already. That the central government, the federal government, is using its power, financial and otherwise, to exact retribution and punishment. And that reminds us of the way you have to deal with autocratic regimes. And so you have to be shrewd in order to protect the population and the institution, and uh, be patient and not be be rash or cowardly. You have to be pragmatic in a principled way, and that's what we're trying to do.
You've mentioned anti-Semitism. That was what the list was claiming. I know that that's been something people have asked about. There's definitely questions about what are we doing to protect Jewish students, and has Bard seen a rise in that? I think people would like to know maybe about the class that you were teaching. Was it this semester as well as last
Last,
semester? Last
the,
semester,
last, last.
and your thoughts on that on campus.
So I'm, as many of the people on the call know, I'm myself a child refugee of Jewish survivors of the Holocaust. I'm a member of the synagogue in Poughkeepsie, and I still have a position with the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra in Israel. and we have educational programs with 3 Israeli high schools, as well as our Palestinian program. And we have a very thriving Jewish student organization, a wonderful Jewish chaplain who is an alumnus, Judge Bettinger. Um, and we have a Jewish studies program, and I host an Erev Shabbat for the Jewish student organization every semester. And we have done our best to give support to Jewish students and Israeli students. The fact remains that anti-Semitism has been a fact of life in America for decades. It never went away. So no one should be surprised. Those of us coming from a European heritage never assumed that America was a promised land free of anti-Semitism. So is there been a rise of anti-Semitism? Sure. And it's often camouflaged in other ways. And that's a nasty and persistent fact of life. And we have to be aware of it, and we have to provide the support. And we do it through the chaplaincy, through the faculty, through the institution. And it is it also involves a new generation of Jews who seek to redefine their Judaism in America as being separate from Israel, and a whole new generation of anti-Zionist Jews. And they really hark back to a history of American Jewry before 1948, where the majority of American Jews were actually cool on Zionism. The creation of the State of Israel was not wildly popular, even in the American Jewish community. So this is nothing new if you have any historical perspective at all. None of this is wildly surprising. So the journalistic astonishment at all this is, to my mind, slightly naive. And so some of this doesn't come to me as a surprise, but I'm determined to make this a hospitable and a welcome place for Jews of all kinds. And the sort of nasty part about it is that an American Jew is seemingly wrongly held responsible for the behavior of the State of Israel, and particularly its government, which I do not admire, and which I've been opposed to in all my years of activity there. But the confusion of being Jewish and its distinction from being Israeli is something that seems to be lost on some people who target American Jews as if they were representatives of the State of Israel, which they're not.
And just your class was, what was it called? Just, can you describe that?
My class last spring was a history of the Jewish question in European history between the late 18th century and the founding of the State of Israel.
Okay. And you had a good enrollment?
Not reasonable enrollment, not, in topics like that, it's interesting. It's characteristic of every generation of undergraduate, particularly undergraduates, particularly political activists, that there is a kind of often a reigning orthodoxy about the facts and the issues, and that not all students are prepared to park that at the classroom door in order to learn both history and the complexity of an issue, such as the Zionism and the creation of the State of Israel, and their competing historical analyses of it, which have competing validity, and the kind of simplistic, reductive account of the history and the conflict is not helpful. And so I taught this class in an effort to to provide scholarly and dispassionate approach to trying to grapple with the very complicated issues that surround the catastrophic war in Gaza and the astonishing barbarity of the October 7th um, attack.
That quite a few people have asked about protests on campus. I don't think we had a town hall since last summer last spring when there were protests here on campus. And also, how are we going to handle that if those people are now, it's deemed illegal to have a protest? And would that be something that you might make a sort of statement about freedom of speech? So those are questions I've had.
Statements are not helpful. The rules of the college are very clear. They've been clarified. Protests are not illegal. There are now strict rules of that you can't impede someone else's conduct of their academic life. But students have the right to protest, to speak their minds. There are pretty strict rules which about the use of property to protect against unnecessary vandalism, and and we've learned, from ambiguities in our own documents. So that has been clarified, but every generation of students has protested, and the issue is that protesting us seems slightly disturbingly ironic because we have the largest Palestinian American collaboration. We have the largest number of Palestinian students. We have students here from Gaza. We are hardly, the Palestinians are our colleagues, and as well as our students. And we're not a government agency. I mean, the locus of protest needs to be Washington and the federal government. And now we not only have the question of the Middle East, we also have the future of Ukraine. And we have the deportation of our own neighbors, cruel and unusual and illegal punishment in violation of the fundamental, if you will, Christian principle of love thy neighbor as thyself, which is happening in our own backyard. And so there's a lot to protest, and it's hard to describe us as a cause of this or complicit with this. So, you can't be a college president, you can't run a college without expecting and treating with dignity the students' desire to protest and express themselves. There are rules by which they need to do that, and those rules are easy to follow.
Are you at all surprised that there haven't been more? I mean, not necessarily protests against Bard, which I completely understand, but just sort of more activism against what's happening nationally by our students. I can sort of imagine in some of alum in previous years have, no one's going to go to class. Let's, have a strike of classes or, those things. You're not surprised that that's not what's happening.
Strike of classes is useless and undercuts the very purpose of the institution. Becoming politically active on a variety of issues, Ukraine being one, the effort by Trump to bow to the will and advantage of Vladimir Putin, and to do to Ukraine what was done in 1938 to Czechoslovakia, for example. The failure of any interest in that issue does trouble me. The failure of us to resist the the mistreatment of the people who've lived among us, whatever their documentation may be. It is absence of empathy and generosity, and the targeting of certain populations. This is something I hope that not only students but the population at large will object to.
And can you imagine that objection to take over the whole country? Do you see that there's going to be a giant national movement or I don't know. I keep on waiting for a general strike or something. Do you feel like no?
I don't see that there's a precedent for that. I wouldn't hold my breath if one thought that was the right way to go. I don't see at the moment a rising popular dissatisfaction with Trump and what he's doing. That is troubling, no doubt about it. But there it is.
Okay. Can you just explain, we hear about the dear colleague letter or the some sort of what has Bard actually got from the government or from an agency that says that is sort of prescribing some action? Have we had?
So the Dear Colleague letter, which was issued in February, was a kind of shrewd, almost screed that clearly intentionally made it clear that much of what they were concerned about was probably not enforceable legally, but and a lot of it had to do with DEI, and so the letter was received and acknowledged, but other than checking that our materials all complied with the law, other than acknowledging it, we just recognize it. It's a kind of hunting license, which will allow them to target individual institutions or programs if they wish to. But nothing has happened so far.
And have we made any changes to, I don't know, language that's being used somewhere or on the website or anything like that?
I mean, to avoid, unnecessary attention, we've restated our principles using language such as, inclusion and access and tolerance and welcoming to all groups and all types of individuals. And so these are things which have been fundamental to the college long before the language of DEI was invented. And so there is no cause to deviate from our principles. We need to express them in our own way and clearly. And we did add, just to make sure that no one could say we ignored the Dear Colleague letter, we put in a statement that any student can join any group on campus, no matter who they are. So a Catholic can join this Jewish student organization, that there are no exclusionary groups which discriminate against one or another group, which has always been the case at Bard. That's always been the rules among the clubs. So it was restating something we already have on our books.
You mentioned I know we have a lot of international students. I went swimming this morning and met a young woman from Afghanistan whose two sisters are also here, and she told me about being evacuated from Afghanistan, going to a refugee camp in Uganda, and then learning about Bard and applying for scholarship. And she's here, but I understand that the international students have sort of been advised, unless absolutely necessary, don't leave the country for spring break, or maybe, and maybe we'll have to have some of them here over summer or extended time because of that. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Indeed. So, given the current situation, we have advised students from abroad, let's say, not to go out of the country during spring break. And indeed, we may be faced, as we were during the pandemic, of housing and providing shelter for international students over the summer.
Right. Right. Well, and we have a large percentage of Afghan students. We have Ukrainian students. We have Russian students. Obviously, we've always had a lot of South Asian students. And you said we do have some Palestinian students at this point, and there's opportunity
We,
for more.
we have two students from Gaza. Yeah, I know we have students from all over the world, and the travel ban list that was announced. Students have to be very mindful that, and also staff with visas that could be revoked. There's a lot of danger out there, and we need to be alert to that and provide what protection we can to all those individuals so that they stay out of harm's way.
Right. So just switching a little bit to teaching in this time, not just in the time of this administration, but with the rise of AI, people have been asking about the liberal arts in general. How will things change? How do you foresee things changing with AI? And if you have, social media obviously is part of our world at this point. So do you have any thoughts about that? Specifically, AI has been asked about.
First of all, AI, I'm not an expert, so I have to apologize. My approach to AI is that it's a technology that will evolve. It can be used well, it can be used harmfully. Um, oh, I don't think it's necessary for us to go change the way we go about our business. The big universities are concerned about, generating one's schoolwork in college through AI. Our students are too smart. They use AI to write a paper. It's their loss. That I'm not wildly nervous about it. It's a tool like any other, and it is no replacement for what humans do as teachers and learners, especially in the liberal arts and the humanities and the arts. I'm not worried about AI playing a violin or painting a painting. And there's a lot of journalistic hype to this. Um, I'm not a believer that technology can be stopped. There's no reason to do so. And we have to learn to use it intelligently and well. And there are obviously great positive uses to AI. So we don't spend a lot of time worrying about it. We have someone who helps faculty and others if they have questions about it, but it's not a primary concern. Social media is a presence that one has to acknowledge. The real issue is encouraging students to read and to spend time reading and spend time writing and spend time doing their own work and cultivating their own skills. In that sense, the liberal arts have never been more important than they are now. Teaching is terrific. We have a new first-year seminar, which the first semester focused on close reading of the Republic by Plato with supplementary readings. The second semester focuses on constitutions, the American, other constitutions, and political theory that relates to the ideas of democracy.
And that's new and that's
Yeah,
a new.
yeah, and I've enjoyed teaching it. I teach it with a colleague, Nezrin Mekin, who is a Turkish scholar of literature, and it's working very well.
Are there any other new programs at Bard that you'd like to talk
Yeah,
about?
we hired Roosevelt Montas from Columbia, who is going to head up he has a new chair given by a donor in liberal education and civic life. And he's a very distinguished political scientist and also student of literature. And he's going to also run a center which is going to focus on general education and the liberal arts and finding a way to strengthen the liberal arts not only in colleges but in high schools
Okay, and that's starting, when is that going to start?
in the fall.
In the fall. And you mentioned high school, so Bard has 10 early colleges now, is that
Yeah,
right?
yeah, we have four
Yeah.
in New York. The newest is in Brooklyn. The second newest is in the Bronx, which we do in collaboration with the Einstein College of Medicine. And they're terrifically successful and doing very well. And we've actually opened a kind of nascent BSEC on the West Bank. And so that's actually doing extremely well. And closer to home, I hope the alumni visit the campus and support us. But when they visit the campus, they'll see there's a lot of construction. Uh, the Mile Lynn studio building is well underway. We have a dormitory complex with 400 beds, 5 buildings. That's next to Robbins. And we have an addition to the CCS. All of those are under construction now. And as many people know, we bought the old St. Joseph's, which was for a while the Unification Church property, which we now have named after the original name it was given by the Livingstons in the 19th century. It's called the Messina campus, after the name of the mansion that the Livingstons had on that property, which they named after a marshal of Napoleon's. There's even a town in New York with that name. And I'm not really sure why there was this cult, if you will, of Messina, but that's the name of the campus. And Simon's Rock in Great Barrington will be moving to that campus. So that move will take place this summer. And so the Simon's Rock program will be housed on the new enlarged Bard campus.
Somebody had asked me, is asking in our questions about what's going to happen to the original spot of Simon's Rock. Is that for sale?
Yeah, eventually be sold. Yes. Yes.
Mhm. Okay. Can you tell me, we're in admission season? I heard that decisions are going out tomorrow, or and happy to hear that we have some alumni who've had their children go to Bard or want to go to Bard, like me.
We've
How's it going?
Yeah, very well. George Hamill is an alumnus, the director of admissions, doing a fantastic job. We have a slight increase in applications. We're going to have 2 open houses this next month, and we hope to do well in this admission season, despite the enormous economic and demographic pressures. As everybody knows, there is a downward trend in the number of high school graduates, especially in this part of the country, and no increase in the percentage of students who go to college. And so it's an increasingly competitive environment. And even without the added burden of the Trump administration's approach to higher education, there are going to be closures, and it's a much more competitive, as I said, environment. And it's very important that the college have the economic strength to withstand both the political and economic pressures that we face.
And if I'm not mistaken, I mean, financial aid is really the biggest budget concern that we have. Bard gives over 70% of students some
Yes.
sort of financial
Yeah.
aid.
So what's happened over the last 10 years, especially since the financial crisis of 2008, that the number of students who contribute to pay the tuition is declining, and the net tuition revenue is declining for all institutions. And so colleges are increasingly dependent um, on philanthropy. And in our case, which is why we're in the midst of this endowment campaign, and we are have to move systematically to a greater and greater dependence on philanthropy.
Right. And I mean, the students, our goal, the sort of goal for all colleges would be that we could meet everybody's full need. We can't do that at the moment, but we are, attempting to have the school have the biggest mix of different kinds of people from all different economic backgrounds who this is a good fit for. What would you say if you were trying to persuade a young person that this might be a good place for them if they're choosing between maybe some other liberal arts schools? What do you must get that question. What do you say to people?
Yeah, I'm the wrong person to ask. I happen to think that we have one of the few really first-class liberal arts curricula. We have truly an outstanding faculty of people of international reputation in all the fields who love teaching. And we have a very high quality of teaching. And the program, the moderation, the senior project, the class size, all make the experience distinctive. And the institution is really about education. A lot of people go to colleges not to learn, but to have a college experience, which is mostly extracurricular, fraternities, sororities, all kinds of things that motivate people to go to college. And we sometimes look too serious and too hard for applicants. So uh, I am a great fan of the place, and I see students on a regular basis, particularly the conservatory students who are in a 5-year program. We just did a concert Saturday night, which was they played spectacularly, and it's a source of great pride. We have terrific students, and the uh, but the college does encourage an idealism about learning, and that's probably the most important thing we can do.
Somebody asked in our Q&A, does I think they're referring to the B admission program, which was solely based on 2 essays. Is that right? That you have to write? 4.
I mean, yeah, go ahead.
Does that still exist, and how popular is it?
Sure, it's an option. It's not wildly popular, but I'm a little disappointed that it's not as popular as it should be, but there it is. But it is still exists as an option, yeah.
Right. And we now do offer some sort of merit aid, is that right?
No, we provide aid to in certain fields where there are resources for students with special distinctions. Merit aid, as usually done, is simply a discount um, in order to encourage tuition dollars. We don't do that. So we have some limited opportunities in the sciences, in the arts, where we have funding, and sometimes in literature. And so there is a genuine reward for achievement and for a distinction. But we don't, as many colleges do, how shall I say, negotiate how much they're going to pay and then call it merit aid.
I see. Okay. You did mention the endowment challenge. Can you tell us how that is going and possibly how alumni can assist in that? It's huge.
It's very simple. So we are in a $500 million challenge grant from the Open Society Foundations. And the terms of meeting that challenge are dollar for dollar. And that includes gifts, as well as promised gifts and gifts over time, pledges. So when you put all those together, we've raised so far about 460 million. We're 40 million short, and this can be easily, that gap can be filled readily by bequests. We have, I think, 166 people in the John and Margaret Bard Society, which is the bequest society, really. And these are irrevocable commitments. And we need to reach the 500 mark. And we'd like to do that by the end of this academic year, by commencement, actually. Our deadline is December 2025. But given the political situation now and the pressures that all colleges are feeling, that we need to maximize the resources, and we need to meet the terms of the challenge earlier and get the 500 million, which is not now ours, transferred to us. The campaign itself, the capital campaign we're in, which is due to end in June 2026, has in it as well, I hope we were successful in this, in building an additional athletic facility and a new science building, and also new facilities for the architecture and design program. So there's capital needs as well.
Right. And just to be clear, so if somebody has Bard mentioned in their will, it would be great if they let us know about that. And if they can put any kind of number on that, then we can actually count it, and it goes towards our goals. And just because it is also my purview, all gifts are appreciated, whether or not they're bequests. They don't all go towards the endowment, but they what they show is, and I mean, this is something I've learned from you, Leon, is that they show other people that there is support for the people who have more capacity, that there is support from the alumni body. And I believe that Bard people really care about Bard and want Bard to continue. So yeah,
Loyalty,
go ahead.
loyalty to the institution in terms of giving has never been more important.
You've been here for 50 years. I just had the pleasure of listening to an audio recording of your first speech when you were given the job. It was and it was wonderful and interesting, and I will share it with the alumni. Are there any reflections of things that you want to share? Is this the hardest time Bard has ever been in? Changes, things that you're thinking about at this point? And obviously, we are going to celebrate, and everybody will know about that. But just I want to know from your perspective how that is to think about that.
Yeah, I don't know what speech you're referring to, so I'm scared to think about
When
it.
you were, well, what's it called? Are you inaugurated? Yeah, when you were inaugurated.
I I don't remember it very clearly, but all I remember was raining. The uh, I don't think 50 years is particularly significant. But in answer to the question you asked, this is certainly the most unexpected and difficult political time in my career. There's no question about that. The most anxiety-provoking, the most ominous, and that is, it's a direct assault on the core values of a university and a college, the core values of scholarship, of teaching, of free expression, of academic freedom. And and I never anticipated being in on a pathway along with the rest of the country to a kind of autocratic passive compliance with an overreach that violates the rule of law and the fundamental principles of the Constitution. And so, yeah, I mean, this is without question the hardest time I can imagine, with the least amount of public support that the generally anti-institutional attitude of the public has never been higher. And people don't realize how significant these institutions are, and that the sort of a radical individualist view of the Robinson Crusoe, or the an obsessive concern with one's own well-being. There's more written about what the best vacuum cleaner is in the New York Times than there is about international politics. We're not living necessarily in a very optimistic moment in terms of culture and politics, and we are somehow caught between unattractive extremes on all sides.
So what keeps you going? What keeps you happy? What are you reading? What makes, I mean, besides the things that we all hope we have as friends and family and things, but for me personally, it's it's the colleagues, and it's knowing that I'm part of this community is like really important. You must have thought about that.
You have a son who's a student, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't think in terms of happiness. That's asking too
Yeah.
much.
No bother.
I enjoy first and foremost the students of the college as a teacher, and just dealing with them on a regular basis. Wonderful colleagues. The community, as you say, is a wonderful community. We have a terrific impact on the community around us in the Hudson Valley. And I think we're a source of pride for the region. We're economically essential for it. And so I take great pleasure in the work. It's hard battling. Most of our competition are much richer than we are, much richer. And so the historic paucity of resources stays with us. But the good work that the college does, not only here in Annandale, but in all its programs, is in my view truly admirable, and is a source of pride, and sustaining it. I commiserate with Max Kenner and the Bard Prison Initiative, struggling with the recent strike in the New York prisons, and getting those programs back up and running. And he's done a terrific job with the micro colleges as well. And I'm proud to say he's an alumnus. And Dumaine Williams, who is the dean of all the early colleges, also an alumnus, and oversees not only is the vice president of student affairs, but also oversees the academic programs of the Bard high school early colleges. These are sources of great pride, and the good that we do is, in my view, non-trivial.
Yeah, there's a gala for Brothers At, which is another one of these sort of incubated here, but has gone national. Maybe you could just.
Yeah, Daryl Vasquez from the Class 17 had created a program while I was an undergraduate, which links high school students and support for them through BARD, and by which one fights the inability to stay in high school and the inability to complete high school and actually make the transition to college.
Yeah, it's a wonderful, thank you. It's a wonderful program. I'm excited about going to their event. Somebody did ask in the chat if we didn't make well, we don't like to say this, but if we didn't make the $500 million match, do we not get the money? Somebody wanted to know.
It's a zero-sum game. If we don't
Okay.
make the match, we don't get the money.
Okay.
I didn't write those terms, the donor did.
Right. And that's George Soros and your longstanding relationship with him and his foundation. Is
I
that?
think the college's long-standing relationship. Mr. Soros and the Open Society Foundations were crucial in starting the prison initiative.
Mhm.
The Gates Foundation really got us off the ground with the Bard high schools. They made a slight contribution in the beginning. They've supported most of our international work, the work in Palestine. They've been decisive in our ability to do the things that we do.
Right. Well, we're coming up on an hour now, Leon, and I wondered if is there anything you would like to say to the alumni? We have about 90 people still on here.
I'm not eager to leave. And if people have a question they want to ask, I'm only more than happy to try to answer it.
Um, Yeah, well, I mean the questions, I think you've covered most of the questions that people wrote. A lot of people said we're looking for insight, wisdom. I think you've given us your perspectives on a lot of these things and really showing how Bard is in the forefront in lots of different, you know, amazing ways that we can all be proud of. My son's studying computer science and philosophy. Computer science people say, why is he doing that there? But we have a wonderful computer science
Yeah,
program.
yeah. One of the things the alumni can help with is to sort of dispense with a distorted understanding of the college that may be derived from an alumnus's or an alumna's own experience 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, however long ago it may be. But speaking as an alumnus of another institution, I'm always keenly aware that institutions don't stay in the same place. And the kind of somehow humorous cliches about the Bard of the past, or the assumption that it's an art school, that the largest single division is not the arts division, but the social studies division. It has a growing natural science, mathematics, and computing division. It is, in that sense, a full range liberal arts institution and a great place to study science. Great place to study science. And so a lot of the sort of lingering impressions of the college reputationally, it would be great if alumni were saw to it that we could help them refresh their opinion and picture of the college. I mean, we have now nearly 2,000 undergraduates here and almost 300 graduate students. And the total number of degree candidates under the Bard umbrella is well over 6,000 worldwide. So it's not your ordinary college, and it isn't the same place that an individual may have gone to but it does retain the same commitment to excellence, the same curricular structure, with a first-year seminar on the moderation and senior project, and the same organization of the faculty, which is fundamentally multidisciplinary, not organized by departments, for example. And so there is both enormous change and at the same time a great deal of continuity between generations of students.
Right. There's a couple of other questions that I did just want to touch on before I let you go. Somebody had was asking about Peter Elbow and the establishment of L&T is I don't know that everybody knows who that is, but maybe you he recently deceased.
Yeah, he died recently. He was taught at MIT for a long time and the University of Massachusetts. He wrote a book called Writing Without Teachers, and he was ironically also a founding faculty member of Franconia College in the 60s. And I hired him to start L&T in 1981, and he did it for 1 year and did a terrific job in getting it organized and started and off the ground, and lent it some of its fundamental approaches to the teaching of writing. So he was an original and charismatic in his way teacher and thinker about writing.
Okay. I unfortunately never did L&T, and I feel somehow back when I was coming, they let me in, and it was optional, and I made the mistake of not taking it. Somebody is asking about the architecture program that you mentioned. We certainly are happy to send out information later about that, but it is a fabulous program. It's been very successful, and students love it.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
design and architecture. It has now facilities sort of on the hill, away from the parking lot, and we're looking to expand them, and that we were designed for it. So it's a very successful and thriving program.
Yeah, and I think a really a draw for students to come here, and has some wonderful teachers in that program. A lot of alumni, when they wrote in, said, "I don't want to ask a question. I just want to thank Leon for his incredible leadership over all these years." And I really think that we are all extremely grateful to you to being here, and thinking about how some colleges sort of cycle through, is it like a sort of 7 year cycle of leadership? And we all, you've always been accessible and, inspirational to so many of us to hear what you have to say. So I did want to convey that to the
Sure.
alumni, and I know you also appreciate them.
Oh,
So
yeah. I thank everybody for their support. This is the time for all of us to stick together. And the um, the job is richly enjoyable, and I'm very grateful to the board for its support and for the belief that we should always try new things and continue to try to do better what we do. And I'm very proud of our faculty and the faculty that now are in the center of the leadership of the college. We have a terrific dean, Deirdre Dalbert, and Jonathan Becker runs our international programs and does the voting rights and a whole host of things. Has done an outstanding job. And so we have a very talented team of administrators. Ton Toy, who is the chief financial officer, does a fantastic job. He's an alumnus too. And Colleen Murphy, who is also an alumna, runs the general administration. So we have committed Bardians who have chosen to make their careers in strengthening the institution.
Yep, I consider myself one of them, and I feel very very lucky to be part of this department and the work that we do to support the college. Well, Leon, I really thank you for your time. As we said, it is St. Patrick's Day, so I don't know if you I'm gonna have a Guinness. I believe you might have one there too. So
I
I'm
don't, I don't intend to drink it because I have to work tonight. So
oh well, just a sip. It's like food. It's good for you. Thank you so much, Leon, and thank you everybody who was on there. If we didn't get to your questions, you have any other questions, really, president at bard.edu can that's where you'll get Leon. But thank you, everybody, and have a great night.
And thank you all for joining, and have a very nice night and a good week.